Welcome back to The Critique. Today we are looking at a 15-minute YouTube commentary video by Tinashe Peter that critiques Candace Owens' behavior following the death of Charlie Kirk, framing her actions as demonic and offering a spiritual warning to the audience. Let's get right into the feedback.
Yeah, let's dive in. To start, the video effectively builds suspense but risks losing the audience's attention by bearing the primary conflict way too deep into the runtime.
You mean the actual interaction between Candace and Erica Kirk?
Exactly, yeah. The weakness here is that the creator spends, I think it's the first minute and a half, just on this preamble, talking about being done recording for the day and his own reluctance to cover the topic.
Right, I noticed that too. When I hit play, I was sort of ready for this huge demonic revelation that the title promised, but then I'm just listening to a schedule update.
Right, and while that preamble establishes authenticity, it delays the inciting incident of the commentary, the specific claim that Candace promised to stop if Erica Kirk spoke up, and then Candace's refusal to actually do so.
So the listener just has to wait too long to understand what the specific demonic move even is.
Yeah, it's like you're promising an explosion, but you start by showing someone filing their tax. It's just a breach of contract with the viewer.
But doesn't he lose that personal connection if he just cuts the intro? I mean, that reluctance felt authentic to me.
Well, the suggestion for improvement is to front-load the specific evidence of betrayal to create an immediate narrative hook, and then weave in that personal reluctance as flavor text. Later, you don't have to lose it completely.
Oh, I see. So you hook them first. What does that look like practically?
A concrete example would be to open immediately with the timeline that he actually mentions way later in the script. Start with something like Charlie is killed, the next 3 months is this woman pretending to care, Charlie's widow says stop it, and almost immediately after she uses that as a gateway to go all out.
Wow, yeah, that grabs you by the collar right away.
Exactly. You get the conflict and the stakes in 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Or another option, move the clip where Candace says, "I'll only stop talking about this if one of 2 people says something," to the very first seconds of the video.
That instantly sets the parameters of the whole drama, like a challenge.
Right. And then you just cut all that introductory rambling about compiling short-form videos and spending too much time on X. The audience assumes you did the research. You don't need to show them your math.
That makes total sense. There was another part in the intro, though, the comment about Candace's husband. The blink twice if you're still alive, George thing.
Yeah.
It was funny, but it felt buried in the middle of a serious analysis later on.
Yeah, that needs to move up too. Place that blink twice comment regarding her husband immediately after the clip to establish the absurdity of the situation right away, rather than saving it for the middle. It tells the viewer this situation is basically a hostage situation.
It sets the hook before they can even click away.
Exactly. So that's the structure. But then once we get into the meat of the video, we hit another major issue. The usage of playground insults undermines the gravity of the creator's serious theological argument regarding spiritual warfare and narcissism.
This is about the nicknames, right? Because I was really torn on this. He's using these massive terms like malignant narcissism and Luciferian spirit.
Profound spiritual diagnoses, yeah.
But then he pivots to calling her cockroach Candace and scammed Hones and cuckoo Candace.
Right. The weakness is that the script oscillates between this really high-level spiritual diagnosis and low-level name-calling. While he is clearly passionate, the nicknames just feel petty, and they completely detract from his profound argument that she is an entity siphoning life force.
It just pops the balloon. It feels like cognitive dissonance.
Completely. It invites the listener to dismiss the speaker as just a hater rather than a spiritual watchman. You can't claim this high moral ground while you're rolling around in the mud using playground insults.
But this is the internet. People love a good roast. Do we just strip all the personality out of it and make it super clinical?
No, you keep the heat, but elevate it. The suggestion for improvement is to elevate the language to match the seriousness of the end times warning, focusing strictly on the behavioral analysis rather than ad hominem attacks.
Give me an example of how to do that. Because Cockroach Candace paints a very vivid picture. How do you keep that without sounding like a bully?
Well, he tries to justify it by saying you have to place it under a specter of light. So for a concrete example, instead of calling her a cockroach, rephrase this to focus entirely on the metaphor of exposure. Discuss how darkness cannot survive scrutiny without using the dehumanizing insect label.
Like saying the behavior scatters when exposed to the light.
Exactly. That describes the same revulsion, but observes behavior instead of just name-calling. And for Scammers, he actually wrote a much better description himself later in the draft.
Which one?
He calls her an entity that operates in the currency of attention.
Oh, that is chilling.
It really is. Replace scammers with that. Scammers sounds like Twitter drama, but an entity operating in the currency of attention sounds like a genuine spiritual threat.
What about the other religious terms he uses? Father of lies and accuser of the brethren.
Keep those strong theological descriptors. They fit his biblical framework perfect, but he should remove that weird digression about the airy-fairy pocket version of God, just to keep the tone completely focused on the specific danger she presents.
Got it. Okay, so we fixed the hook and elevated the tone. Let's talk about the audience analysis section because I found this part fascinating.
It is fascinating. But here is the thing. The categorization of the audience into busybodies, conspiracists, and haters is a brilliant analytical tool, but the descriptions become too visually specific and distract from the spiritual danger the creator wants to highlight.
You're talking about the woman with the wine cooler?
Yes, the weakness here is when describing the busybody, he goes into this incredibly specific visual of a woman eating cheese and cracker, drinking a wine cooler, and sitting like a little mermaid.
I actually liked that detail. It felt very real, very vivid.
It is vivid, but it's a caricature, and it feels like a distraction. It shifts the focus from the spiritual state of the viewer, the gossip, and the slander, to a critique of their domestic habits. It completely dilutes the urgency of his warning to repent.
I see what you mean. If I don't drink wine coolers, I might think he's not talking to me, even if I'm gossiping online. It makes it an aesthetic critique instead of an ethical one.
Right. So the suggestion for improvement is to tighten the profiles of this enabling audience to focus strictly on their psychological and spiritual motivation rather than their physical setting.
So how do we restructure that specific part?
Concrete example, shorten the wine cooler and soccer meet description. Focus instead on the internal motivation he actually mentioned, which is the satisfaction of hiding our own darkness behind someone else's drama.
That cuts so much deeper than cheese and crackers.
It gets to the actual sin, and it's the same thing when he discusses the angry man archetype, exemplified by Stu Peters.
Right, he talks about how he looks like a raging alcoholic with a vein popping in 4K.
Which again focuses on physical appearance. Instead, focus less on the biology and more on the contradiction. Wearing a cross while preaching about the evil cabal of Jews, that aligns infinitely better with the video's theme of spiritual hypocrisy.
The cross versus the rhetoric is the actual conflict, not the vein in his forehead.
Precisely. And there is one more thing in this section. He has a brilliant biblical analogy about Joseph's brothers later on.
Yeah, that was strong.
It needs to be moved up. Use the Joseph's brothers analogy earlier in this audience section to explain why these audience members are drawn to the drama. It's jealousy and envy. It turns a basic caricature into a deep psychological profile.
That integrates theology right into the social commentary. It's really smart. Okay, let's move to the ending, the landing gear. He goes from talking about a glittering pantsuit at a funeral straight into a very dark sermon about the end time.
Yeah, and this is the so what of the whole piece. The transition from the specific drama to the broader end-time sermon is powerful, but it risks alienating viewers who haven't yet bought into the demonic premise by moving too quickly into absolute theological assertion.
It definitely felt like a jump scare. Like we were just talking about internet drama, and suddenly it's the final countdown and Lucifer's world system.
Right. The weakness is that the end of the video feels disconnected from the specific events of the funeral. The bridge between Candace is behaving badly and the end times are here needs to be reinforced so the conclusion actually feels earned rather than just tacked on.
Because right now, it just feels like he's jumping to conclusions without showing his work. So what's the suggestion? How do we build that bridge?
Suggestion for improvement. Bridge the gap by explicitly connecting the specific actions of the subject to the specific biblical warnings earlier in the script. You need to create a ladder of abstraction that leads the viewer to the conclusion naturally.
Okay, give me a concrete example of that ladder. How do you connect a pantsuit or funeral behavior to the literal end times?
You use his own reporting. Connect the specific mention of the 50,000 hat orders at the funeral directly to the biblical warning about lovers of themselves and greedy behavior, mentioned in 2 Timothy.
Oh, because he already alluded to 2 Timothy earlier.
Exact. Don't just generally say the end times are here. Say, look at the 50,000 hat order. This isn't just commerce. This is the specific evidence of the greedy lovers of self prophecy we read about in Timothy. Ground the theology in the tangible data.
That makes the demonic claim feel like a logical conclusion. It's undeniable once you frame it that way.
And it completely changes the call to action at the end, too.
Right, because right now he just has a general get right with a true living one kind of altar call ending.
Which is standard but not specific enough. Concrete example. Instead of a general call to get right, tie the call to action back to the specific victims mentioned, praying for Charlie's babies and Erica's baby as a specific act of spiritual warfare, contrasting it with the hatred of the online audience.
That's a great adjustment. It turns the prayer into an action item that counters the exact evil he spent 15 minutes exposing.
And to really bring it home, use the Joseph meant it for good point to explain why the creator is even making the video. Not just to expose evil, but to wake up the rest of us. It makes the video itself part of the redemptive arc.
It transforms it from an angry rant into an actual revelation.
Exactly.
That really is the theme of all this feedback, taking something that could just be internet beef and structuring it into a serious spiritual argument. So let's recap the main action items for Tinashe.
First, front-load the inciting incident regarding Erica Kirk to hook the viewer immediately. Start with the explosion, not the preamble. Second, strip away the petty nickname so the stronger spiritual vampire analysis can stand on its own credibility.
And the third point?
Tighten the audience profiles to focus on internal motives like envy and hypocrisy rather than external caricatures, and build that ladder of abstraction to earn the end times conclusion by tying the specific evidence, like the hat orders, directly to the biblical text.
Fantastic. Tinashe has all the raw materials here. The passion and the clips and the theology are all there. It just needs this structural polish to hit with maximum impact. We'd love to see you apply these edits and submit the revised script back to us for our final look.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see the next draft.
Thanks for tuning in to The Critique. We will catch you on the next one. Keep writing.